On Monday, October 17, 1983, at 1:07 p.m., Grover City Police Department received a call from Principal Florence Wilner of Alton G. Bradford High School, reporting an urgent medical situation inside the school's second-floor West Wing lavatory. Within minutes, the situation was escalated by arriving staff to a suspected fatality. Responding officers Harold Minch and Lena Torres arrived on site at 1:14 p.m. and proceeded to the scene, a student restroom commonly known among students as the chocolate toilet, due to outdated brown tiling and a long history of plumbing issues. The door to the third stall was ajar, partially obstructed by the slumped body of a teenage boy. He was later identified as Benjamin Scott Mercer, age 16, a junior at the school. Mercer was found in a seated, sideways position on the floor, his back against the stall divider, head tilted unnaturally to the left. His backpack was still slung over his right shoulder. Blood had pooled beneath his head, soaking into the grout lines of the floor tile. Near his right hand were 3 large, jagged pieces of what had been the porcelain tank lid from a toilet cistern. The tank itself remained intact but uncovered. Emergency responders pronounced Mercer dead at the scene at 1:23 p.m. Preliminary visual examination showed trauma to the left side of the head, specifically, at the temple and above the ear. Each of the recovered porcelain shards showed edges consistent with blunt force injury. No other individuals were found inside the bathroom. There were no security cameras inside the restroom. Hallway cameras, though limited in angle, did capture movement in and out of the corridor during the relevant period. At the time of the murder, 5th period classes were in session. The West Wing lavatory typically saw low traffic during class hours. Teachers later confirmed that Mercer had requested to leave chemistry class at approximately 12:48 p.m., citing nausea. He was issued a pass by instructor Ellen Truslow. Scene investigators noted that the victim's personal belongings were undisturbed. His wallet remained in his inner jacket pocket. A class schedule was found folded in his jeans. Nothing appeared stolen. However, the placement of the Mr. Goodbar wrapper found in the toilet bowl, dry and clean, suggested post-homicide placement. Victim profile. Benjamin Mercer, born March 4, 1967, was a junior in good standing with no disciplinary record. He was described by teachers as methodical, introverted, and serious-minded. Mercer participated in academic decathlon and had recently been recognized for exemplary lab conduct in chemistry. Mercer had reportedly been involved, indirectly, in a plagiarism incident the prior spring. While he was not disciplined, staff believed he had anonymously reported academic dishonesty involving multiple classmates. That incident was never officially tied to any one student, and Mercer's role remained unofficial. A graffiti message found on Mercer's locker in August 1983 read, "Snitches get sick." He declined to file a complaint. Initial suspicion. Analysis of hallway camera footage revealed that 5 students entered or exited the West Wing corridor between 12:35 and 1:05 p.m. Only one individual, Kenneth Ray DuPont, age 17, was seen entering the restroom without any record of exiting until after the estimated time of death. DuPont had been absent from his 5th period literature class and returned only at 1:05 p.m., 2 minutes after the murder window. When questioned, he admitted to using the West Wing lavatory due to stomach trouble. He claimed not to have seen Mercer and denied hearing any sounds consistent with violence. However, he did admit, "I was in there a while. Chocolate milk at lunch was a mistake." His calm demeanor, imprecise timeline, and known academic history involving Mercer drew immediate attention from detectives. DuPont was taken in for preliminary questioning that same afternoon. By 1:45 p.m. on the day of the murder, Kenneth DuPont had already emerged as the only individual to enter the West Wing lavatory during the critical window, between 12:41 p.m. and 1:03 p.m., without appearing on hallway camera footage again until after Benjamin Mercer's death. When initially approached by school staff and later by police, DuPont claimed to have experienced stomach issues after lunch and chose that restroom because it was always empty. He said he didn't see anyone in there, adding, "Chocolate milk hits weird sometimes." He did not inquire about who had died, how, or when. When told it was Benjamin Mercer, he said, "Wait, Mercer," with a neutral tone and no follow-up questions. His effect was described as oddly neutral, which was noted in the incident report. Officers took him into custody for formal questioning that same afternoon. At Grover City Police Department, DuPont was interviewed by Detective Kyle Murrin and Officer Lena Torres. He waived his right to counsel, at first stating confidently, "I didn't do anything wrong." Asked again about the bathroom, DuPont admitted to being there for about 15 minutes, though the video timeline proved it was closer to 22. He claimed he did not know Mercer had entered. The video footage, however, showed Mercer entering the same bathroom at 12:49 p.m., 8 minutes after DuPont. At 12:53 p.m., Mercer was killed. DuPont was seen exiting the restroom at 1:03 p.m., 10 minutes after Mercer's estimated time of death. Investigators were already reviewing the physical scene. The porcelain lid from the toilet tank had been broken into 3 large pieces, one used as the murder weapon. It bore no usable prints. One shard had a smear wiped clean with what appeared to be a damp material. In the toilet bowl, a Mr. Goodbar wrapper. Unusually, it was dry despite its location. This indicated it was dropped, or placed, after the flush cycle. It was not trash. It was a mark. Initial lab tests returned the first concrete link: the wrapper bore a partial thumbprint. Kenneth DuPont's left thumb. When shown the image of the wrapper during interrogation, DuPont said, "Yeah, I eat those all the time. Maybe I dropped one earlier." He offered no explanation for why it was in the stall with the body. Meanwhile, investigators returned to Mercer's locker and recovered a folded note behind his chemistry textbook. It read, "Locker 238. Tuesday. No snitches." Locker 238 belonged to Kenneth DuPont. A search warrant was obtained and executed the next morning. Inside DuPont's locker, officers found a crumpled towel with visible blood staining and brown smears. A second Mr. Goodbar wrapper, torn. A signed but unsubmitted chemistry class attendance slip. A chemistry quiz sheet defaced with "Ben the Rat" in black ink. A spiral notebook containing erratic, heavily crossed-out writing. The towel was sent to the lab. The blood was identified as type B, Benjamin Mercer's blood type. Also found embedded in the towel, ceramic dust particles matching the broken toilet lid. In addition, forensic analysis found a 7 mm blue cotton fiber in the towel's weave, consistent with the uniform jacket Mercer had been wearing at the time of his death. DuPont's spiral notebook provided further insight. Pages were torn. What remained revealed obsessive language. He told. "That's why I lost chem. They all pick each other. Mercer's name's on every list. They make rats out of heroes and nobody cares." In red ink, the word "Tuesday" appeared 5 times, circled. The day of the murder was Tuesday, October 17th. Mercer had not failed him. He had merely reported dishonesty. But to DuPont, the outcome had taken shape as betrayal. As the forensic picture came into focus, the human picture followed. Students recalled seeing Mercer and DuPont in only one direct conflict, a minor dispute near the parking lot weeks earlier. Others recalled DuPont growing more withdrawn in recent months, particularly toward those excelling academically. DuPont's name had been absent from college recommendation letters. Mercer's had not. By October 19, investigators were preparing the case for referral. The evidence chain was tightening. DuPont was alone with Mercer in the restroom. He had motive, opportunity, and documented hostility. He left a fingerprinted object in the stall. He stored bloodied cleanup materials in his locker. But the final break would come from what was behind the locker panel, something even more personal than evidence. The search of Kenneth DuPont's locker had already yielded physical evidence, blood-stained fabric, incriminating written materials, and personal artifacts. But the turning point came when Officer Lena Torres noticed the rear interior panel of locker 238 was slightly warped, with a hairline gap along the bottom edge. It didn't match the surrounding metal. Using a flathead screwdriver borrowed from the maintenance staff, Torres and Detective Murren removed the panel. Behind it was a shallow cavity roughly 10 inches wide, dark, and packed with folded cloth. Wrapped inside a chemistry lab apron were the following items. A small spiral notebook, pages torn at the start, filled with jagged handwriting. 3 Mr. Goodbar wrappers, each flattened, each stored deliberately. A pocketknife with a closed blade and flaking rust along the hinge. A defaced chemistry quiz bearing the name, Benjamin Mercer, scribbled out and replaced with, Ben, the Rat, in capital letters. The knife had no signs of recent use. Testing would later show animal blood, likely residue from earlier biology dissections, but no human blood. One additional item stood out. Jammed into the hinge of the pocketknife was a torn paper scrap, yellowed at the edges. The visible text read, Mercer for integrity. School records confirmed that the phrase came from a photocopied lab partner assignment list issued by the chemistry department in April 1983. The original read, paired with Mercer for integrity. The knife had held the note. Folded, pressed, and hidden, not discarded. The spiral notebook, though fragmented, revealed the depth of DuPont's fixation. Words were repeated with growing force. He told. That's why I lost Chem. They protect him. He's golden. It was supposed to be me. He ruined everything and smiled like it wasn't murder. The phrase, Tuesday, appeared 5 times, each circled in red. The date of Mercer's death was Tuesday, October 17. Staff recollections confirmed that DuPont had failed spring chemistry earlier that year after being caught submitting falsified data. No formal statement identified the student who reported the incident, but at least 2 teachers recalled Mercer asking quietly about grading policies during that period. The suspicion, never confirmed publicly, had settled on him. Now it appeared DuPont had never stopped believing Mercer was responsible. On October 21, the forensic report on the towel from DuPont's locker was returned. Key findings. Blood matched Mercer's rare type B profile. Embedded in the fibers were ceramic particles, identical in chemical structure to fragments from the toilet tank lid. A single blue cotton thread was found near the towel's corner, matching the material of Mercer's school jacket. The towel had been used to clean blood, possibly from DuPont's hands or the porcelain shards. It was hidden deliberately, not discarded. The combination of materials in the hidden compartment indicated both forethought and ritual. The wrappers were collected. The knife kept a paper fragment tied to the victim's name and moral standing. The phrase, for integrity, meant to signify respect, had become a fixation point for resentment. Then, the anonymous note. On October 22, Principal Wilner found a folded piece of paper pushed beneath her office door. Typed in block letters, it read, You want to know who really cleaned up the mess? Ask the guy with the mop. He knows. But he's scared. That evening, Detective Murren and Officer Torres returned to the school and spoke again with janitor Carlos Vega, who had previously denied seeing anything unusual. Under renewed questioning, Vega admitted he had started his shift early on October 17 and had seen Kenneth DuPont exit the West Wing restroom around 1:03 p.m., matching the surveillance footage. Vega described DuPont as quiet, pale, shaking a little. He thought it might be drug use or a panic attack and had chosen not to report it. He now confirmed the timing, the direction of travel, and DuPont's state, all consistent with someone who had just committed a violent act. The timeline was now complete. DuPont enters the restroom at 12:41 p.m. Mercer enters at 12:49 p.m. DuPont remains inside until 1:03 p.m., 10 minutes after Mercer's death. The murder weapon, wiped and fragmented, is found beside the body. A Mr. Goodbar wrapper with DuPont's thumbprint is placed in the toilet bowl. A towel soaked in blood and embedded with ceramic particles is hidden in his locker. A notebook filled with violent, obsessive language is found behind a false panel. A witness places DuPont leaving the scene in a disturbed state. And yet, one crucial piece was still missing: the victim had warned someone. Investigators had just discovered that Mercer had filed a written concern about DuPont 3 weeks earlier, a note that had never been processed. On October 22, 1983, during an administrative audit ordered by Principal Florence Wilner, a sealed student incident form was discovered misfiled in the guidance folder of Benjamin Mercer. The form, handwritten and dated September 26, 1983, had not been processed or seen by any school authority prior to Mercer's death. The note read, "I'm not seeking punishment, just safety. I believe Kenneth DuPont has been following me after school. He waits in places where I don't expect him. He asks about grades I didn't discuss. He's not threatening, but it feels deliberate." Guidance counselor Judith Reeves admitted under internal review that the report had been placed between application packets by mistake during a busy week. No follow-up meeting was scheduled, no staff were informed, and no parental contact was made. The document had gone unnoticed, until after the murder. The content was significant. It did not accuse DuPont of violence or direct threat. Instead, Mercer expressed discomfort, highlighting subtle behaviors, surveillance, social pressure, and uninvited academic questions. It was a quiet attempt at a boundary, not a complaint, but a signal. The following day, October 23, a student named Casey Lawton requested to speak with detectives. Lawton, 17, was in both chemistry and English classes with DuPont and Mercer. He had previously avoided involvement. He now admitted to overhearing a conversation between DuPont and another male student behind the science wing 2 weeks before the murder. DuPont had said, "They make rats out of heroes and nobody cares. I'm tired of getting stepped on by invisible rules." When asked what that meant, Lawton replied, "I thought it was just ranting. Like he failed a test or something. But it felt pointed, like someone had crossed him and he was going to fix it." Lawton also reported seeing DuPont enter the West Wing restroom shortly before the murder with a Mr. Goodbar in his hand. "I thought it was weird," he said. "He wasn't eating it. Just carrying it like it was part of a routine." This detail aligned with the wrapper found in the toilet bowl, dry, preserved, and likely placed after the crime. The candy was not just a snack. It was part of the staging. By October 24, the investigative team reconstructed the complete timeline of events between 12:35 and 1:05 p.m. on October 17. 12:41 p.m., Kenneth DuPont enters the West Wing lavatory. 12:49 p.m., Benjamin Mercer enters the same restroom. 12:53 p.m., estimated time of death, multiple head strikes from a ceramic lid. 12:55 to 1:02 p.m., DuPont remains inside. Wipes down fragments. Disposes of the candy wrapper. Cleans blood. 1:03 p.m., DuPont exits the lavatory, witnessed by janitor Carlos Vega. 1:05 p.m., DuPont arrives back to class, fifth period nearly over. Vega, re-interviewed after an anonymous tip, described DuPont as sweaty, pale, and quiet when exiting. He did not raise an alarm at the time, assuming drug use or illness. He confirmed DuPont washed his hands at the sink and left quickly. This account locked DuPont's physical presence at the scene, within the fatal window, and his behavior matched post-crime distress. The forensic team re-examined the pocketknife found in DuPont's locker. While not the murder weapon, it contained something else, a small scrap of paper trapped deep in the hinge. When extracted and flattened, it showed part of a printed chemistry handout with one surviving line. Paired with Mercer for integrity. The school confirmed this was from a spring semester lab partner assignment list. Mercer had been placed with DuPont and others after a plagiarism incident. That phrase, for integrity, had become a symbol. Not one of pride. One of blame. To DuPont, it seemed, that label marked a turning point, Mercer as the informant. Mercer as the student who stood between him and success. Mercer as the reason he failed. Whether or not this was true didn't matter anymore. The belief had become fact in DuPont's internal logic. By October 25, the investigation concluded that Mercer had never accused DuPont directly. In fact, faculty notes from April showed that Mercer had named only one student, Gregory Shaw, in a quiet plagiarism complaint. He refused to identify the others. DuPont had been shielded, not exposed. This information had never reached DuPont. As far as he believed, Mercer had ruined his record. Taken something from him. In truth, Mercer had chosen not to. He had taken the harder path, reporting dishonesty, but sparing names. That final fact, learned too late, would soon be delivered to DuPont in custody. At 7:43 a.m. on Wednesday, October 26, 1983, Kenneth Ray DuPont was arrested without incident outside Alton G. Bradford High School. He had arrived early and was found seated beneath the gymnasium overhang, holding a breakfast sandwich, alone. Detectives Kyle Murrin and Lena Torres approached on foot, presented a warrant for his arrest, and placed him in handcuffs. DuPont offered no resistance. His only statement was, "Took you long enough." He was transported to the Grover City Police Department for booking. Charges at the time included suspicion of first-degree murder and obstruction of justice. During initial intake, DuPont declined legal counsel and responded to a limited series of questions. He acknowledged knowing Benjamin Mercer had died and that he had been in the bathroom. When shown photos of the crime scene and the Mr. Goodbar wrapper bearing his partial thumbprint, he remarked, "Guess that's what you found." Asked directly if he had killed Mercer, he said, "I made it right. That's all I'll say." That was the extent of his cooperation. He was held overnight and appointed a public defender, who requested a psychiatric evaluation the next morning. Between October 27 and October 29, DuPont was evaluated by Dr. Marion Elson, a certified forensic psychiatrist. 3 sessions were conducted in a secured interview room at the Franklin County Juvenile Detention Center. DuPont exhibited flat affect and minimal outward emotion. He spoke slowly and precisely, rarely looking up. He denied hallucinations, delusions, or suicidal thoughts. When asked about Mercer, DuPont said, "He thought doing the right thing made him innocent. But it just made him powerful. That's what they don't get. Reporting someone isn't neutral. It changes their life." Dr. Elson asked about the preparation. DuPont admitted bringing a Mr. Goodbar on the day of the murder. He said it was part of the pattern. When asked if he brought gloves, DuPont responded, "Yeah. Forgot to wear them. That was stupid." This was interpreted as a tacit admission of premeditation. He did not express regret, remorse, or guilt. Instead, he referred to the act as a reset and described Mercer as the face of a system that didn't need to be cruel but was anyway. When asked if he believed the murder had helped him feel better, he said, "It balanced the story. He got to be right. I got to be remembered." Dr. Elson concluded that DuPont showed no evidence of psychotic disorder or mental illness. He was legally competent to stand trial and met the full threshold for criminal responsibility. She described his behavior as consistent with obsessive grievance fixation and noted that he used symbolic thinking to justify his actions. On October 29, while preparing evidence for pretrial motion, a district clerk uncovered a handwritten note in a faculty meeting transcript dated April 1983. The transcript detailed the plagiarism incident from chemistry class that led to DuPont's academic probation. The margin note read, "Mercer confirmed Shaw altered the data. Refused to name other students despite repeated questioning. Stated he only wanted the teacher to know. The student Mercer had implicated was Gregory Shaw. DuPont had been part of the same group, but had not been named. Mercer had intentionally withheld DuPont's name. None of this had been shared publicly at the time. It had not been included in DuPont's academic review. And he had never known." On October 30, DuPont's court-appointed attorney informed him of this discovery during a pretrial meeting. Witnesses later stated that DuPont went silent, looked down at his hands for nearly a full minute and whispered. He didn't have to say anything at all. No additional statements were made. That evening, formal charges were filed. First-degree murder. Obstruction of justice. Possession of a deadly weapon on school grounds. DuPont was denied bail and held at Franklin County Juvenile Detention. He refused a plea deal offered by the prosecution the following day. The case was bound for trial. The trial of Kenneth Ray DuPont began on January 9, 1984, in Franklin County Superior Court. Though DuPont was 17 at the time of the offense, he was tried as an adult following a juvenile fitness hearing in December that found him fully capable of understanding the nature and consequences of his actions. Security was elevated. Press presence was permitted but restricted to one camera. Lead prosecutor Terrence Coble opened with a firm framing: the murder was premeditated, deliberate, and staged with psychological intent. The candy wrapper. The writing. The hidden towel. This wasn't a panic. It was a plan. DuPont entered a plea of not guilty. His defense, led by public defender Rachel Kenner, offered a strategy based on diminished capacity, not insanity, but impaired decision-making influenced by undiagnosed depression and social alienation. The prosecution's case unfolded over 5 days. They presented timeline reconstruction using surveillance footage. Forensic evidence tying the blood on the towel to Mercer. Ceramic particles and fiber matches between the towel and Mercer's jacket. The partial fingerprint on the Mr. Goodbar wrapper. Excerpts from DuPont's recovered spiral notebook. Photos of the pocketknife with the embedded, for integrity, paper scrap. Detectives Murrin and Torres testified. So did guidance counselor Judith Reeves, who admitted under oath that Mercer's written concern about DuPont had never been processed. The courtroom turned quiet during her reading of Mercer's words. I just want to feel safe. Carlos Vega, the janitor, confirmed seeing DuPont exit the lavatory at 1:03 p.m., shaky and wet. He explained his initial silence, stating, I thought it was drugs. I didn't want to get involved in something bigger than me. The most impactful testimony came from Casey Lawton. On the stand, he described hearing DuPont say, they make rats out of heroes and nobody cares. He also confirmed seeing DuPont carry a Mr. Goodbar on the day of the murder, without eating it. He looked like he was holding onto a prop, Lawton said. When asked by the defense if DuPont had ever threatened him, Lawton said no. Asked if Mercer had provoked DuPont, Lawton replied, Ben wasn't cruel. He was the kind of person who'd check if you had lunch. The defense presented one witness, a forensic psychologist who testified that DuPont suffered from persistent depressive symptoms and social alienation, contributing to a distorted view of others' intentions. The expert avoided terms like psychosis or delusion, emphasizing instead maladaptive cognitive filtering. DuPont did not take the stand. When asked by his attorney if he wished to speak, he shook his head once. Closing arguments concluded on January 23. The jury began deliberations that afternoon. They returned twice with requests. A rereading of Mercer's guidance note. Clarification on the definition of premeditation. They deliberated for 2 full days. On January 25, the jury delivered its verdict. Guilty of first-degree murder. Guilty of obstruction of justice. Not guilty of possession of a deadly weapon, ruling the toilet lid as an improvised item, not a brought weapon. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for January 30. The judge delayed it briefly to allow both sides to review a final impact statement from Mercer's parents. DuPont remained emotionless as the verdict was read. He blinked slowly and looked at no one. Judge Harold Brenner stated in his remarks, this act was not born from madness, but from resentment, isolation, and calculation. It was not committed in confusion, but in order. It struck not just a boy, but a school, and the assumption that justice could be trusted to occur in daylight. Kenneth Ray DuPont was sentenced on January 30, 1984, in Franklin County Superior Court. Following victim impact statements from the Mercer family, the court imposed the following: 35 years to life for first-degree murder. 5 years for obstruction of justice, to run concurrently. No eligibility for parole until age 52. The courtroom remained silent during sentencing. DuPont declined to speak. He looked down through most of the hearing, hands folded in his lap. His public defender made no motion for appeal. Judge Harold Brenner concluded. You were not failed by one person. You were not cornered by a system. You were given an opportunity to choose dignity and you chose control. That's why you're here. DuPont was transferred to Oregon State Correctional Facility, OSCF, in Salem, where he began serving his sentence in the general population. He has never applied for parole. Following the trial, Alton G. Bradford High School implemented several changes. All student guidance reports were transitioned to digital records. A two-person review system was enacted to ensure no report could go unread. The West Wing lavatory was permanently closed in the fall of 1985, converted to janitorial storage. A new scholarship was created, the Benjamin Mercer Award for Quiet Leadership. Mercer's parents, Michael and Joanna, relocated to Boise, Idaho in June 1984. They declined all interviews. Their final public statement, released through the school district, read: Ben believed the right thing was worth doing even when it wasn't seen. That is how we will remember him. The case remained closed, but not forgotten. In 1987, during retirement file consolidation, former guidance counselor Judith Reeves discovered a sealed manila envelope marked BM, Spring Hold, at the back of her office drawer. Inside was a single-page handwritten letter from Mercer, dated March 1983. It read: I know what I did was correct by school policy. But I also know Kenny doesn't have many people who'd say it wasn't about him. I didn't want to ruin things for him, just for him to stop copying. If he retakes the class, I'd be willing to help him pass. He's not dumb. Just alone. The letter had been intended as part of a proposed restorative justice program that was never implemented. DuPont never saw the letter. In October 1991, on the 8th anniversary of the murder, the Franklin County Public Defender's Office received an anonymous envelope. It contained no return address and no fingerprints. Inside was a single typed page, in narrow uppercase. I didn't know he tried to help me. Maybe I wouldn't have cared. Maybe I would. I only know the silence was mine. I own that. He was a good kid. I was just a shadow. The letter was archived and filed with the permanent record. No further correspondence followed. Case status, closed. Victim, Mercer, Benjamin, 16. Offender, DuPont, Kenneth, 17. Charges, murder, first degree, obstruction of justice. Trial, January 1984. Sentence, 35 years to life. Closing agency, Grover City Police Department. End of file.